Today we explain why Asian economies are doing well and why Western ones are declining. We present data and real-life examples. They show both big and small businesses' problems in the West compared to those in Asia. At the end of the episode, you will know more about what future awaits us. This video might help you make a life-changing decision. So here are the 3 major reasons for Asia's economic rise and Western decline. Reason 3.
Why businesses are leaving Europe.
European employees have high minimum wages, benefits, and subsidies. They have strong unions and generous vacations too. But high tax rates in a growing welfare state pay for it. We should also mention the over-regulated European business environment and rising energy prices. Meanwhile, Thailand and Vietnam have 6-day work weeks. They are experiencing significant economic success. The best example of failed policies is Europe's #1 economy, Germany. The very recent example is Volkswagen. The global brand is shutting down its 3 plants in Germany. It is cutting the salaries of the remaining employees. Add to it lost business for all the Volkswagen suppliers. And it gets worse. Part of this production and supply chain might move over to Asia. Why? You guessed it. Lower taxes and minimum wages, less regulation and social welfare, a diligent workforce. We now look at small businesses. Say, running a restaurant in Europe is a highly regulated endeavor. The US and EU's Food Safety and Inspection Service has great power. It can shut down any restaurant, bar, or pub. It makes the lives of entrepreneurs very difficult. Add to it double-digit inflation. That means ingredients and labor costs are much higher than in Asia. In the past, the rule was to keep food and beverage costs at 25 to 30% of turnover. We are now looking at 35 to 40%. I have to ask you, where would you prefer to run a business? Let's look at Asia.
Why business is booming in Asia.
We draw here from our experience of working and traveling through Asia for over 2 decades. Many Asian countries have a much lower tax burden than the West and much less regulation. Here is an example. One of the more popular tourist attractions in Taiwan is night markets. And here comes the kicker. They all are tax-free zones. Yes, you heard me correctly. Tens of thousands of people working all over the island in night markets make money. Those entrepreneurs support their families without being taxed. They also cooperate with many more companies and suppliers, creating even more business. Here is another example, also restaurants. In many places in Asia, authorities relax hygiene inspections or do not conduct them at all. In Cambodia, you don't even need to register a food stall. It gets better. In Cambodia, you don't pay any taxes on such a small business. And mind you, all those lax regulations exist in a much hotter and more humid climate than in Europe. The result? Just see, smell, and taste for yourself. Reason 2.
Lower life quality in the West.
We discuss a major problem in Europe, how the social welfare state makes illegal immigration possible. Here are some stats. In 2022, Europe's government spending was 50 to 60% of GDP. For the US, it was 30 to 40%. In Asia, it was 10 to 30%. This data is key to understanding Europe's biggest social challenge, illegal immigration. And it is exactly social welfare that makes illegal immigration possible. Here we see how it works. They are fresh off the boat and upon arrival receive housing, money, and healthcare, all provided by European taxpayers, mostly against their protests. Those people don't need to work or integrate. The host government provides for them. The surge in immigrants strains public services and healthcare. Locals now find them less available. It lowers the quality of life. It raises living costs. Local citizens must buy insurance for medical care. Do you think the government should support illegal immigrants with so much social welfare and benefits? Or just let them work like local citizens do?
Higher quality of life in Asia.
The immigration problem doesn't even exist in Asia on such a scale. That's because those governments spend less on welfare and are stricter towards immigrants. Remember the stats about government spending as a ratio of the GDP? Another point. In Singapore, social security programs are intentionally inadequate. There are no unemployment benefits or minimum wages. Hong Kong's GDP per capita in purchasing power parity terms, is second in the region, behind Singapore's. And yet, the city's social expenditure remains the lowest in the region. Despite rising inequality and a decline in meritocracy, social programs in Hong Kong still stress self-reliance and a reluctance to depend on welfare. Therefore, all new arrivals in those countries have to work and rely purely on themselves. Young foreign males come to first-world Asian countries for work. They don't rely on handouts or crime, as they do in Europe. In case of women, they are hired in Asia as housemaids and caregivers. They all work on contracts and leave afterwards. No family reunions. Example, a lot of Vietnamese wives in Taiwan run their own restaurants or nail polish shops. They are financially independent and don't burden Taiwanese taxpayers. Reason 1.
European leftist policies and ideology.
For many decades, European voters have been electing leftist politicians. Their policies have become more and more woke. They aim to create equal outcomes instead of equal opportunities. We now present 2 examples of those policies, and we focus here on real estate. First example. In 2016 and 2021, voters in a left-leaning city, Berlin, elected a socialist government. It implemented restrictions on the height of house rents. This very example happened last year in the popular Berliner district, Prenzlauer Berg. Imagine you have worked hard and invested your savings in an expensive apartment to rent it out. You have a family and want to support it with passive income. You found a tenant and he or she agreed to pay you as the landlord €2,500 rent a month. You are happy because years of hard work have paid off. Then the tenant goes with that signed agreement to the local authority. The authority confirms to the tenant that, in this fancy Berlin district, a landlord can charge a maximum of €900. Why so little, you ask?
Because we say so.
You ask again, why? It's my apartment.
The authority says because everyone has the right to afford living in a nice apartment, even if he or she can't afford it.
But you say, hey, in that case, I lose €1,600 a month. I've worked hard to buy this apartment and rent it out.
Who cares? You are rich, you can afford this. We are all equal, right? Right?
The second example comes from Spain. A huge problem on the Spanish real estate market are ocupas. Those are illegal squatters who can move into your empty apartment and stay there. Just occupy it and foot you with the costs. Yes, you pay all the utility bills while they are occupying your place. How would you feel if you were the landlord and this happened to you? Those populist policies are now at all levels. They affect all industries in Western first world countries. Many expect that growth will lead Asian countries to spend more on welfare. But Japan is the only economy in the region that spends on welfare at a level comparable to other OECD member nations, even though other East Asian economies have become as rich, if not richer.
That is exactly what a super rich person would say.
Such interference in property rights, as described here, is unthinkable in Asia. It's common in Germany and Spain. Asian economies are now much more market-oriented and a lot less ideological than the Western ones. Do you still think the Western economies are superior to the rest of the world?
Conclusions.
All those examples make it clear why Western businesses keep moving to Asia. Also, why the rich are leaving Western countries and moving where they are treated much better and nicer. Let's just look at Canada and the UK. Thank you so much for your time, and see you in the next video, and see you in Asia.